All right, let's dive into some fascinating ideas today. We're going deep into Marcelo Martorelli's thoughts on spiritual initiation.
Yeah, his lecture, the one you shared,
Yeah.
it's really packed with thought-provoking stuff about consciousness, the ego and connecting with your deeper self.
Yeah, and I like how he starts.
Oh,
He
yeah.
talks about that feeling. I think a lot of us have it sometimes.
Yeah, like you're stuck.
Yeah, like we're stuck in a rut,
Oh, totally.
just kind of living on autopilot.
He calls it
The fact that
that horizontal existence
Yeah,
without that vertical connection with our soul.
exactly. But he doesn't just lay out the problem. He actually gives us a roadmap to move beyond it.
Yeah, he does.
I think that's one of the things that's so appealing about his work.
Definitely.
It definitely resonates with me. I think, we've all had those moments where we feel like we're just going through the motions.
Oh, absolutely. And what's really striking about Martorelli's approach is that he draws these parallels to these ancient wisdom traditions, but he uses this language that feels very relevant to, our modern experience.
Yes, totally. So how does he suggest we begin this journey? From horizontal to vertical, right?
Well, he calls this first stage the path of the primary disciple.
Okay.
And this stage is all about recognizing the ego's dominance in our lives.
Okay.
Like we start to pay attention to those knee-jerk reactions, those habitual thought patterns that, often drive our actions.
So it's about cultivating self-awareness,
Right.
but not just in a general sense. It's specifically about becoming aware of the ego's influence.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, holding up a mirror to your thoughts and actions and asking, is this really me?
Yeah.
Or is this my ego running the show?
That is a really powerful question.
Right. And this is where it gets really practical, I think.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does this play out in our everyday lives?
Okay, so imagine you're in a meeting at work and someone criticizes your idea.
Okay, yeah.
Do you immediately get defensive?
Oh, yeah.
Feel that surge of anger or resentment?
Right.
That's the ego reacting.
Totally, yeah.
But if you're practicing this primary disciple awareness,
Right.
you might notice those feelings arise, but without letting them dictate your response.
So it's not about suppressing emotions.
No.
But it's about creating space between the feeling and our reaction to it.
Exactly.
It's almost like that classic advice, take a deep breath,
Yeah.
but with a deeper level of awareness.
Absolutely. And Martorelli, he goes even deeper,
Okay.
explaining how this lack of self-awareness can actually lead us down a path of negativity and suffering.
Wow, that's a pretty strong claim. How does he connect those dots?
Well, he argues that without the observer, that self-aware part of ourselves,
Right.
we become consumed by our thoughts, especially the negative ones.
Oh.
We get caught in this loop of self-criticism,
Yes.
doubt, and anxiety.
Yeah, I know that loop well.
Right. Sound familiar?
Oh, all too familiar.
Right.
But he also suggests that we can transmute this negativity into something positive. How is that even possible? Like when you're in that downward spiral?
Well, he uses this really powerful metaphor,
Okay.
comparing our thoughts to the energy of a light bulb. So the filament is the source of the energy,
Right.
but the light itself is what illuminates the room.
Okay.
He says we need to shift our focus from the light, the fleeting, reactive thoughts,
Yep.
to the filament,
Yeah.
which represents the underlying ideas and beliefs shaping those thoughts.
So instead of getting caught up in the surface level negativity, we can ask ourselves, what deeper belief is driving this thought?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And this leads us to another fascinating concept.
Okay.
He introduces
Okay.
the idea that we actually possess two distinct minds.
Two minds. Okay. Now you've got my attention.
Okay, so he calls them
What's that all about?
the concrete mind
Okay.
and the abstract mind.
Right.
So the concrete mind is our everyday operating system. It deals with the practical matters.
Okay. Yeah.
Memories, facts, the to-do list.
Got it.
But the abstract mind is something much deeper. It's the realm of the soul, where our values, our morals, and our deeper reasoning reside.
So it's almost like we have these two parallel processors running simultaneously, one grounded in the material world and the other connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And this concept has some pretty radical implications.
Okay.
For example, Martorelli challenges this conventional view that our mind is limited to our physical brain. He suggests that this abstract mind, this soul mind, could potentially connect us to something far beyond our individual experience.
Okay, that's mind-blowing. It makes you wonder other capabilities we might have that we haven't even tapped into yet.
And here's the catch. Even when we start to understand this concept of two minds and start to cultivate self-awareness, there's another hurdle we often face: duality.
Duality, you mean like good and evil, light and darkness?
Not exactly. Martorelli is referring to the dualistic nature of thought itself.
Okay.
He says we tend to get trapped in a cycle of self-judgment.
Oh.
Swinging back and forth between justifying our actions and then condemning ourselves.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right.
It's like that internal ping pong match.
Yes.
I'm right, I'm wrong. I should have done this. I should have done that. It's exhausting.
Right. It really is. And he argues that true spiritual growth, that, that vertical connection that he talks about, requires us to transcend this dualistic thinking. We have to move beyond the constant self-judgment and find a more balanced perspective.
So how do we escape that mental tug of war? It sounds like we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, according to Martorelli, this is where the antakarana comes in.
Antakarana.
Yeah, it's a Sanskrit term. And he uses it to describe the bridge we build between our personality and our soul.
A bridge. So we're not just talking about a mental shift. We're talking about something that actually connects these two parts of ourselves.
Precisely. And the key to building this bridge, he says, is consistent self-observation.
Okay.
Not just noticing our thoughts and actions, but also becoming aware of our emotions.
Okay.
And even our speech.
Our speech. How does that fit into the picture?
Well, he's got some really fascinating ideas about the different levels of speech.
Okay.
He suggests that most of us, we operate on this very basic level, what he calls vulgar everyday speech.
Okay.
It's mostly reactive, just getting things off our chest.
Right.
But there's this higher level he calls the word that expresses.
Okay.
Which comes from a deeper place within us.
So it's about being more mindful of what we say and how we say it.
Yes.
Choosing our words carefully, speaking with intention.
That's right. And then there's this highest level he describes, the word that syntonizes.
The word that syntonizes.
Yeah, he says this is the language of the soul, the type of speech that actually has the power to connect us to something, larger than ourselves.
Wow, the word that syntonizes. That sounds powerful.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. Self-awareness, understanding duality, mastering our speech. It's like this multi-pronged approach to building that bridge to the soul.
Exactly. And, Martorelli, he also emphasizes the importance of recognizing synchronicities.
Okay.
Those meaningful coincidences.
Oh, yeah.
That often feel like a wink from the universe.
Yes.
He suggests that as we strengthen the antakarana,
yeah,
that bridge to the soul, we become more attuned to these subtle signs and messages.
I've always been fascinated by synchronicities.
Oh, really?
It's like these little nudges from the universe kind of pointing us in the right direction. But sometimes I wonder if I'm just, reading too much into things. It's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further.
Yeah, absolutely. What stands out to you most so far about Martorelli's ideas?
Well, this whole idea of two minds really grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
It's made me think about all the ways we might be limiting ourselves by only focusing on the concrete, everyday mind. What about you?
Yeah, I think what's most interesting is how Martorelli...
how he blends.
Yeah, he blends that ancient wisdom with modern psychology.
Right.
He's offering a framework for spiritual growth that feels both timeless and incredibly relevant to our lives today. And he's challenging us to consider a much broader definition of what the mind is and what it's capable of.
I completely agree.
This is definitely giving me a lot to ponder.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's like we're expanding our mental map.
Yeah.
Venturing beyond that familiar territory of the concrete mind and into those uncharted realms of the abstract mind.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really captures that sense of exploration that comes with this kind of inner work.
Absolutely.
But how do synchronicities play into all of this? I'm curious to hear more about how we can learn to recognize and interpret those meaningful coincidences.
Well, Martorelli, he suggests that these synchronicities, they're like messages
Yeah.
from the universe,
Yeah.
these subtle signs that guide us along our path.
Okay.
But to perceive these messages, we need to kind of tune our awareness to a different frequency.
Okay.
It's like trying to listen to, a distant radio station.
Right.
You need to adjust the dial to pick up the signal clearly.
So the clearer our connection to our soul, the better we can interpret these cosmic messages.
Exactly. He believes that a well-developed antikarana, it acts like this finely tuned antenna.
Okay.